What's up, everybody? I hope you are having a great Monday. Very excited to be hanging out with one of my new friends and very special guest, Kristin Messerli. She is somebody who has such an impact and is literally influencing the mortgage industry in so many ways. And I'm excited to be sharing her with you. If you haven't seen what she's doing, you're about to get a little snippet of what she's doing and what she's accomplished. Because honestly, Kristin, you have been one of those people that you're the managing editor for Mortgage Women's Magazine. You're the founder of a company called Cultural Outreach, which we're going to get into here in just a second. But you're doing so many great things. And one of the best parts about it is you're a millennial. You're like me. You and we were just talking about that. And it's so great to see the younger generation coming in and having a voice, having an impact in the industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kristin Messerli. Hey, great to have you on, Kristin.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be on the show.
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you what, ever since we met at Agent 2021 and I saw your energy and your passion there, I'm like, holy cow, I need to have this. We need to connect on the show, need to have her on because, again, you've got tons of energy. You've got so much passion for the industry. So I'm excited to be sharing that with everybody today. So before we get too far into it, real quick, who is Kristin? So those who are just joining for the first time or watching you for the first time, kind of tell us about you, your background a little bit, and everything that you're doing.
Yeah, so my background originally was actually in social work, and I worked a lot with immigrant communities and worked locally and abroad, and started doing a lot of community organization where I would connect businesses with my clients and all of that. And I realized later I got into business, and my dad owned a mortgage company, so I knew the mortgage space pretty well. But later I realized that skill set was so needed for these communities that are often isolated, underserved, and people in my generation as well, they needed access to those businesses. I mean, even when I talk to my friends today, they do their research online, but they feel like they don't know who to talk to and they don't know how to actually navigate that research. And so I became an easy point person that could kind of be that bridge of access between underserved markets, millennials, and businesses in the mortgage industry.
And you're doing just that. And what's so cool, I didn't know your dad so where did you get your start in the industry? Did you start actually being a loan officer? Did you start as a processor? How'd you get your start?
No, I mean, kind of like you said, working with your family. I mean, when I was really young, like 7, I was, answering phones at his office or whatever. But so I followed the industry. And then when I went to, I became a social worker right while I was in college, and did that for about 7 years. And then I started following the Dodd-Frank as it was rolling out, and realized that there were a lot of regulations in there that were important to my clients. And so, looking at diversity and looking at how they were approaching working with nonprofits and diverse markets became something that it kind of merged with my current role, or the role at the time as a social worker. So. And then I started following some of the policy that mortgage companies were required to pay attention to around diversity, and started working in that niche at the time. So
wow, there you go. And then it just grew from there. And now you are where you are, like I said, managing editor of Mortgage Women's Magazine and Cultural Outreach. So let's get into that, because this is really cool. And I think this is something that's so needed in the space, in the industry in particular. So tell us a little bit about Cultural Outreach and how that began.
Yeah, so I started it as a social worker. I started doing a lot of training for businesses and helping them understand how to communicate across cultural differences. And so that was about 5 years ago. And today we create financial literacy education and marketing content for mortgage companies that really resonates with today's buyers, whether that be looking at how women look at content differently, and how to connect with women, how to connect with particular groups like ethnic, cultural groups, how to connect with millennials. We focus a lot on the millennial segment, as that's such a fast growing market segment, and there's just a big gap between what I think millennial expectations are and how the mortgage industry is reaching them. So that's where we're mainly focused on the financial literacy marketing content and training for mortgage companies.
No, I absolutely love that. Now, you mentioned millennial expectations, and there's so much talk about millennials in this industry. What are millennial expectations? Because people are always like, oh, I want to market to millennials. I want to they're my new target. They're my niche. That's who I really want to focus on. But what are the millennials expectations when it comes to home buying?
Yeah, so millennials are thinking about, I think you have to think about how millennials buy any other product and what has been intuitive for us all growing up. I mean, we remember when texting came out, but we were still really young, and so every transaction I've made in my life has been very fast and easy and convenient and transparent. And I can instantly access a service provider over chat, and I know exactly when I order stuff from Amazon all the time, like anyone, but that we know when those shipments are happening and exactly what's going on in that transaction. So I think our expectations coming to the table as that being really our primary purchasing experiences are having that transparency around the transaction, having quick access to information and customer service, and having the convenience of kind of digital communication. But all that said, that all sounds very tech heavy. That said, we still want the human connection, and we want a human relationship, and that's something I emphasize so much, and that I think a lot of companies are missing. I mean, when I bought a home a few years ago, I remember it was just all very text heavy. Like we texted a lot, and that was convenient. That's what I thought I wanted. But looking back, I think, man, I needed a guide through that kind of chaotic scenario. I want someone that is going to help educate me and keep me, help navigate the home buying process. And that's what buyers ultimately want, and what makes a mortgage company or a loan officer have a competitive advantage.
And I absolutely love that. And just so everybody knows, and this is kind of a cool fact that I learned. So Kristin is actually 10 days older than I am, which is awesome. We found that out as we were getting to know each other just before the call. But we're both millennials. We're of that generation. So the fact this is coming from millennials, because so many loan officers are like, oh no. And even the older generation, especially, like, oh no, all these millennials, they just want tech. They don't care about relationship anymore. It's not about the human interaction. It's all going to be like the Amazon these days. It's just going to be all that. And I'm like, you're crazy. Like, I'm a millennial. Like, I still love that interaction. And coming from you, where you've studied that and you've seen that one-on-one, that belly to belly, as we used to call it, that is still very important. And being that local expert, being that mortgage expert, local expert, whatever you want to call yourself, that really does have weight when it comes to growing your business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we make connections when we look eye to eye with someone. So I think video is a really important component to all of your meetings and follow-ups with people, because as well as in person, but it develops that relationship. I mean, we release brain chemicals that bond us with someone when we look eye to eye with someone. And so that creates a competitive advantage for you whenever they're looking at just rates or, whatever they're looking at in their research. They want someone that they can look eye to eye with and know, I trust you, I believe in you, and you're going to guide me through understanding to how I can make the best decisions.
I love that. And real quick, well, we'll talk about another powerful woman in the industry is Nuria Rivera. She just commented, said, yeah, Kristin, that's my girl. She rocks. So shout out to Nuria. She's watching. And all those who are watching it also live. If you're watching live, hashtag Kristin. That's what anybody our guest, this is something we're doing new. So anybody who's watching live, hashtag Kristin, because that's of course our guest today. So with that as well, Kristin, I mean, again, this shift and this mindset that is going on in the industry, because we all know, well, you and I, because we're involved with the market, there's this older generation. The average age of a loan officer is still 53 years old, but there's this new wave. There's this new age of loan officers coming into the industry. And I know a lot of times you're working with them, you're helping companies with them. Where does that new loan officer start? Where should they be looking to start? I know we have some who are brand new, that they're coming in and they're asking questions. Where do I get started? So for that new loan officer who is of the younger generation, where do they even start?
So thinking about, I think that's actually was probably something that you could answer better, having been a loan officer and owned a mortgage company. I think from my perspective in developing more on the leadership side, you want to find a good mentor, find someone that will train you and open doors for you, like be someone that you want to find people that will invite you to things that are group meetings. Also be really involved in your community. So be showing up at community events, get involved in your young professional organization. Those relationships are where you're going to cultivate a good business. And so I think having that and showing up consistently in your social network as well, and just continuing to add value on a leadership perspective. But that's getting into the kind of the personal branding side. But I think from my perspective, having grown my business, it's been all about the mentors and sponsors I've had along the way that have guided me and brought me into the industry and into growing my business.
No, and I love that. And it really is surrounding yourself with the right people. You and I, this is something we've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to do in our careers and with how we're growing our brands. We do surround ourselves. We get to travel quite a bit and we get to meet great people. And at the introductions, and like you said, having a mentor who can help you with those introductions, that's a big part of growing our brand. And you mentioned your brand. I think that's probably more important because you said it would be a good question for me to answer it for new loan officers, but I think you answered it perfectly because for new loan officers, it's understanding that you are a brand. I wish when I started my career 10 years ago, I wish I would have known, like, I should have been building my personal brand. It would have been, oh man, I would have been leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. But knowing that you are a brand, and knowing how to build that brand is what's really, really important. Like you said, getting involved, showing people that you're not all the time 100%. Hey, I'm a loan officer all the time. People want to see that you're real. People want to see that you're actually human. That you're not mortgaged 24/7, which some people think they are, but you're an actual human being. You actually have a pulse. You have a response. Like you actually are somebody that I want to interact with. There's more to you than just business.
Yeah, exactly. It's about building that human connection. And I think when you think about your personal brand, one, you want to think about authenticity. Like who are you and how are you conveying that to your audience, whether that be in person or on social media or whatever. And then choose a few things that define who you are. Like maybe you're, all about horses, or for me, I'm all about traveling and I'm all about I do a lot of health related things. And so, incorporate that into your brand and how you explain who you are to your audience. And that's what people connect with. So yeah, I think that's so important.
And if you don't follow this girl on Instagram, or on Facebook, you have to. She's like a world traveler. You want to talk about an exciting life. Kristin is she's living it up. But why I love this is because, again, with what Kristin and I do, we're able to surround ourselves with different culture. I mean, people really are our business, and they should be for you as well. So being able to travel, being able to experience different communities, different cultures, it just helps us become well-rounded. So many of us have this little sphere, this little bubble that we live in for so long. And I tell loan officers, because I am fortunate to travel, I tell people, get outside your comfort zone, travel to different events around the country, meet people in different marketplaces. Don't just be the Facebook troll. Don't just be that person on Facebook who is always on there and I know tons of people on Facebook. It's very different knowing somebody on Facebook and then actually getting to know them in their own environment, getting to know them in their own community. It just helps you become better and understand who you are. Like you talked about, really knowing you have to understand who you are and who you really appeal to as your market or as your brand to be able to connect with those people.
Yeah. And I think you want to be in control of that in a way, get in the driver's seat. And this is something I'm learning as I go along. I have been always very true to myself and my brand, but I think recently I've been thinking more and more after the Agent 2021 conference as well. How do you really take control of that and be empowered with your brand? And that idea of empowerment is central to my business and everything I believe in. But deciding this is the message that I'm conveying and being intentional about that is really important.
So I don't want to get too deep in this, and I might just because I'm going to bring it up. So you were at Agent 2021. It's where you and I originally met. Both you and I got to see Gary Vaynerchuk, which was really cool. Gary has recently made some comments, and there's been a lot of different things about it. So what are your thoughts? Well, when Gary says that homeownership isn't the American dream anymore. Again, I've done a video. I'm sure you've talked about it, but really, what are your thoughts? Is it truly the American dream still for some people?
I think he brought up some really good points that we need to be talking about. I mean, I can't remember. I remember watching your response and thinking it was really spot on. But my thoughts are, one, he did talk about having 20% down, and he didn't talk about the other options, in which that shows how important and how undereducated the rest of the world is. I mean, in this industry, I think people make assumptions that yeah, you can Google it, you're going to find out, you can put 3-5% down, but people are lost in that information overload when they do any kind of research, and people still have the automatic assumption it's 20% down, homeownership is out of my reach, or something I'm not interested in right now. And so even, yeah, I think that alone is enough value for us to take away from that video that we need to do more education. But secondly, I think it is important that we think about the view of homeownership. Millennials are so on the go. I mean, I'm constantly in a different city, like you said, but a lot of my friends too are interested in being able to pick up and take that promotion that comes up in New York, or and buying a home really makes you more, they feel like it makes you so that you can't do that. So we need to do more education around homeownership as an investment, as something that, yes, you can Airbnb this out, and this is how Nuria actually just did a video on her story talking about the value of that. And I think that having things that promote the idea of homeownership as an investment, it is a really important part of the education process that currently I think we're still just talking about homeownership as the American dream being this kind of emotional connection. But we need to transition that more toward, this is a piece of the puzzle of building wealth as an empowered consumer.
Yeah, this is exactly why she has the voice that she does in this industry, because that was so incredibly well said. And that's why what I love about what Gary said is there was truth on both sides. I mean, there were so many people who, like, some real estate agents like, oh my gosh, he doesn't support real estate anymore. Boycott Gary, boycott. And I'm like, you guys are nuts. Like, this is crazy, because to each their own. And some of the points he made in there, like you're saying, are actually very valid. And again, Gary is not a real estate expert. He's not a mortgage expert. That's our job. That's our opportunity to go in and really educate people. I did a video. I literally told somebody just a couple of weeks ago, I said, hey, it's probably not the best thing for you to buy a house right now with your job, and you know you're going to be transferred in like a year. Why buy another home especially with the market the way that it is? Like, why take the risk if there is a small dip or a small crash? You lose equity. Maybe you're upside down in a house. Why put yourself in that situation? So renting in this situation is probably the best for you. Again, we need to really position ourselves as that expert, as that professional, and know really, again, we have to be the master of our craft.
Yeah, and if millennials hear you say that to them, or if anyone really, but definitely millennials, we're already very skeptical consumers when we entered adulthood during or right after the financial crisis. And so if we hear you say that, then that makes me totally trust you. Then when you do say, hey, now it would be a good time to buy a home, I'm in and you're my guy, you know? And same thing goes for if I hear anyone in my family or my friend circle say that they're buying a home, I'm like, okay, I don't trust anybody else, but I trust this guy, go to him. So they become your marketers and referral sources. And that's why that transparency factor is so huge.
No, I totally agree. And like you said, it's that trust, it's that relationship factor that we talked about earlier. It really all does come back to that eventually. And if you're not just transactional based, again, there's a lot of big companies in the news right now that are they talk about just being transactional based. But if you truly build your business around relationships, being that trusted voice, like you said, being honest, being transparent, people are going to come back to you time and time again. They're going to refer their friends, their family, the people that they trust and that respect their opinions. So much truth to that. And time flies. We've been going for almost 15 minutes now, but I want to talk on this real quick, because you are a powerful and you're an advocate for the women in the mortgage space. And you and I were talking about this before we got on. And there really are so many incredible women. And now we're just starting to see this blossom. There's been so many women for so long in the mortgage industry, but they've kind of, not that they've taken a backseat, not that they've been in the background, they just now have great women like yourself who are who are in the limelight now, who are actually out in the forefront and giving them a voice. What does that look like for women for the next 12 to 24 months in our industry?
Yeah, I think women are now feeling safe enough to come forward. Their voices are being heard and listened to across levels of the organization. Companies are recognizing the fact that women's voices are important to have at the table, that diversity of perspective and experience is so important. So they're being intentional, and I'm super excited about that. What that means for women and for companies is that for women, we're now finding that we have this voice and that people are listening. And so I think you're going to see more and more women come forward as leaders in the industry, joining as executives. I think companies are being more open to the fact that while women make up half of the primary breadwinners of households, they make up 75% of the caregivers, which means that there's got to be some flexibility there for women as the mothers in the industry. And so I think with that opens the door for so much more opportunity. And we're going to see, more women feel safe and comfortable coming forward as themselves, and more leaders in the industry. I think, and I hope that more women will feel confident in their unique value as women as well. So.
And again, it's great women like yourself and Nuria, who's commenting again. It's women like you guys who are actually leading it, who are saying, hey, we do have a voice. Don't be scared. Be willing to put yourself out there. Get outside of your comfort zone. And again, you're showing them. And that's what this industry has been in need of for so long. And it's so cool and so very, honestly, inspirational. I mean, lack of a better word, inspirational to see you and so many other great women being out there, putting yourselves out there and say, hey, ladies, we're here. We're here to help you as well. Don't feel like you're doing it on your own. We're here to help you, to support you, and really to help you grow. So again, Kristin, it's incredible to see all that you're doing.
Well, it's definitely something that I attribute again to the people along the way that have opened the door for me and have shown me that I do have the ability to be a leader. You know, I mean, my backstory is kind of rough in a lot of ways. And I was not an empowered person, never in a million years imagined that I could be a leader of any kind. And through, learning my own pathway to self-empowerment and through the people that said that they believed in me, that's how I am the way that I am today, but I hope that other women that see this and see women rise up, realize that they have that opportunity. So I think we're in an exciting time for that.
I absolutely agree. I think right now, more than ever, is a very exciting time, not only just for women, but for the entire mortgage industry. And again, great leaders and influencers like yourself are continuing to lead the way. So it's really exciting. And as always, Kristin, again, this has been so much fun, so inspirational. You've given so many great things, but I like to end on a challenge. So for those who are watching this show, what would you challenge them to really go out and do within their business today?
I would challenge everyone to think of 3 things that make up your personal brand, like who you are. So like we were talking about before, what makes you uniquely you outside of just mortgage or your career. And then think about how you can integrate that into your content, into your communication, and build that kind of authenticity. But I think the human, oh, shoot, I already gave away my challenge. But I would also say one more challenge is to use video, because video does allow you to bond and build that human connection.
Just like this, using video. But no, I like that. 3 things that make you uniquely you. What makes you you? What makes your brand? And then again, using it. Once you find those things, share them via video. Really use video. Yeah. It's such a powerful platform. Texting. It's funny because you mentioned texting earlier. You and I both grew up in the era. Like, I remember sending my first text message. Like, I like texting on my very first phone. It was nobody thought it was going to be a big thing. Then it became a huge thing. Now video is becoming the new. You're able to connect with people on such a different level. Text messages were great. Yes, people respond to them, but doing video, you're able to connect on so many great levels. So
exactly.
Kristin, so very powerful. I cannot thank you enough for joining us today and sharing everything that you have. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't follow her, you definitely need to, because as you've seen today, she's going to do some incredible things and continue to be a leader in the industry. So Kristin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And thanks everyone.
My pleasure. We're definitely going to have you on again soon. And ladies and gentlemen, as always, we appreciate you. We love you. We hope you have a great day. We'll see you soon.